The stars above Aurelian Prime burned with the light of war. From the towering crystal spires of the High Council chamber, Supreme Counselor Elora watched as distant flashes lit the night sky. Each burst marked another battle, another ship lost, another defense line broken. For 3 years, the Crack's dominion had swept across the Orion Reach like a storm. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. Worlds that had stood for thousands of years now lay silent beneath occupation fleets. The Aurelians had hoped they would be different. They were wrong. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. "The 7th Fleet has withdrawn from the Hespera Gate," an aide reported quietly. Elora closed her eyes. "Casualties?" The aide hesitated. 72% losses. A heavy silence settled over the room. Around the circular council table, senior ministers exchanged grim looks. No one seemed surprised anymore. Reports like this had become routine. The Cracks were relentless. Their warships outnumbered Aurelian vessels 5-1. Their soldiers were bred for conquest. Every world they captured became a source of new resources, new factories, and new troops. The Dominion never stopped advancing. A holographic map appeared above the council table. Red markers spread across dozens of star systems. Only a handful of blue lights remained. The heart of the Aurelian Republic. Home. "If the Cracks seize the Valtar Corridor," said Defense Minister Saran, "they will have a direct route to our core worlds." "How long?" Elora asked. 3 months. The chamber erupted into worried discussion. 3 months. That was all that remained between survival and extinction. For centuries, the Aurelians had believed diplomacy could solve any conflict. They had built alliances, trade routes, and cultural exchanges across known space. But diplomacy meant little to the Cracks. The Dominion recognized only strength, and the Aurelians were running out of it. "We need allies," one counselor said. "We already asked." They refused. They fear the Cracks. They fear becoming the next target. The arguments blended together. Elora barely listened. Her attention had settled on a small blue sphere displayed at the edge of the holographic map. A distant world. Earth. Humanity had joined a wider galactic community only a few decades earlier. Compared to older civilizations, they were newcomers. Strange newcomers. Stories about humans circulated throughout the galaxy. They came from a world filled with predators. A world of earthquakes, storms, diseases, and extreme climates. A world many scientists classified as a true death world. Most species evolved in relatively stable environments. Humans had evolved on Earth. Some admired them. Others found them unsettling. "What about the humans?" Elora asked. The chamber fell silent. Several counselors exchanged uneasy glances. "The Terrans," Saran said. "Yes. They are unpredictable. We need help," Elora replied. Another counselor frowned. "They are not a major military power." "Perhaps not. Then why ask them?" Elora looked toward the burning horizon beyond the chamber windows. "Because there was no one else." One by one, every neighboring government had declined their requests. Some offered sympathy. Others offered humanitarian aid. None offered soldiers. None offered fleets. The galaxy had already decided the Aurelians were doomed. Elora refused to accept that. "Prepare a transmission," she ordered. Hours later, the message was broadcast across interstellar space. It was not a speech crafted for politics. It was a plea, a simple request from a civilization standing at the edge of annihilation. Elora appeared before the recording device, her voice calm despite the fear she felt. "To the people of Earth." She paused. "The Aurelian Republic faces extinction. The Crack's dominion advances toward our homeworlds. Our fleets have been shattered. Our colonies burn." Images of destroyed cities and refugee convoys appeared beside her. "We ask not for conquest. We ask not for vengeance." Her voice softened. "We ask for help." For a moment, the chamber remained completely silent. Then she spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy. "We plead for mercy. We plead for protection. Help us survive." The transmission vanished into the darkness between the stars. No one knew whether humanity would answer. Days passed. Then, on the 6th day, long-range sensors detected activity unlike anything ever recorded. Deep within the Sol system, hundreds of dormant shipyards awakened. Then thousands. Massive fleets began assembling around Earth. Warships emerged from hidden docks. Carrier groups formed. Weapons platforms powered online. The numbers kept growing and growing and growing. As stunned Aurelian analysts watched the incoming reports, a chilling realization spread through the command center. Humanity had received their plea, and Earth was preparing for war. The first human fleet arrived 17 days after Earth's response. Aurelian sensor stations detected the hyperspace disturbance long before the ships became visible. Operators expected a relief convoy, perhaps a few dozen warships sent as a gesture of support. What emerged instead left them speechless. Hundreds of vessels tore through the void. Massive carriers, armored battleships, missile cruisers, and support craft filled the darkness between the stars. Formation lights stretched across millions of kilometers, creating the illusion of a second constellation appearing in space. Inside the Aurelian Defense Command, silence fell. No one had expected this. "They sent all of this?" one officer whispered. "No," replied Admiral Saran, studying the reports. "According to the transmission, this is only the first expeditionary fleet." The room became even quieter. Only the first. At the center of the formation, a colossal flagship moved forward. Its hull bore the blue and white emblem of Earth. Moments later, a communication request arrived. The main screen flickered to life. A human appeared. His dark uniform carried no excessive decorations. His expression was calm, almost relaxed. "I am Fleet Admiral Marcus Hale of the United Earth Defense Command." Elora stood from her seat. "Counselor Elora of the Aurelian Republic." The human nodded politely. "We received your message." A brief pause followed. Then Hale spoke words that instantly spread through every command center in the Republic. "Earth has accepted your request for assistance." For the first time in years, hope returned to Aurelian space. Unfortunately, the Krax Dominion noticed the arrival as well. 3 systems away, Krax commanders studied reports of the human fleet. Their reaction was laughter. The Dominion had crushed civilizations far older and larger than humanity. Another species joining the war changed nothing. At least, that was what they believed. A week later, the first battle began. Near the Valtar corridor, a Krax strike force emerged from hyperspace, intending to destroy the newly arrived humans before they could establish defenses. The Krax commander expected a straightforward engagement. Instead, everything went wrong. Human ships scattered before contact. To the Krax, it looked like a retreat. They pursued aggressively. That was exactly what Admiral Hale wanted. As the Krax formation advanced, hidden human drones activated throughout the system. Electronic warfare signals flooded enemy sensors. False targets appeared everywhere. The Krax fleet suddenly found itself chasing ghosts. Before they could react, human attack groups emerged from behind nearby moons and asteroid fields. Missiles erupted across the darkness. Laser batteries opened fire. Railgun rounds crossed thousands of kilometers in seconds. The Krax front line disintegrated. Confusion turned into panic. Every time the Dominion attempted to reorganize, another human strike hit a weak point. Hours later, the battle was over. Nearly an entire Krax battle group had been destroyed. Human losses were minimal. Across the Republic, the victory spread like wildfire. For the first time since the war began, the Krax had suffered a major defeat. The question on everyone's mind was the same. How? The answer lay on a distant blue planet, Earth, a world unlike most others in the galaxy. Most intelligent species evolved in safe environments. Their worlds were stable and predictable. Earth was neither. Its oceans produced hurricanes powerful enough to erase cities. Its continents shook with earthquakes. Its ecosystems were filled with predators. Its diseases had killed billions throughout history. For millions of years, survival on Earth had been a daily challenge. Humanity adapted. When faced with obstacles, they learned. When confronted by danger, they fought. When defeated, they tried again. Those instincts had followed them into space. Aurelian officers soon discovered another unsettling fact. Human military training bordered on insanity. Soldiers willingly operated in freezing wastelands, scorching deserts, deep oceans, and airless environments. Exercises that many species considered lethal were treated as routine preparation. One Aurelian observer watched footage of human Marines training. After several minutes, he turned off the recording. I am no longer surprised they defeated the cracks. The victories continued. System after system was stabilized. Refugee routes reopened. Cracks' offensive stalled. For the first time, the Dominion was being pushed backward. Among the wreckage of the Valtar battle, rescuers eventually recovered the escape pod of a captured Cracks admiral. The commander was brought aboard Admiral Hale's flagship. Bruised but alive, he stared at the human officer across the interrogation table. "What are you?" the Cracks demanded. Hale looked at him for several seconds. Then he gave a small smile. "We're from Earth." The admiral's smile faded as a new report appeared on his display. Another human fleet had just entered the war zone. Then another, and another. The Deathworlders were still arriving. 3 months after humanity entered the war, the impossible had happened. The Cracks Dominion was retreating. Not everywhere. Not yet. But for the first time in its history, the Dominion's advance had been stopped. Across dozens of systems, human and Aurelian forces pushed back against the occupiers. Supply routes once controlled by the Cracks were cut apart. Shipyards were destroyed. Garrisons were isolated. The Dominion had expected a rescue mission. Instead, it had found itself in a war against a species that refused to fight by anyone else's rules. On the occupied world of Nerith, thousands of civilians waited inside underground shelters as Cracks troops tightened their control over the region. For 2 years, hope had slowly died. Then the humans arrived. The operation began at dawn. Orbital strikes disabled military communications without harming civilian districts. Human dropships descended through the clouds while electronic warfare units blinded enemy sensors. Within hours, human Marines were fighting street by street. The Aurelians watching from the shelters expected brutal destruction. Instead, they witnessed something astonishing. Human soldiers advanced carefully, protecting civilians whenever possible. When a hospital came under fire, Marines placed themselves between the building and incoming attacks. When a transport carrying refugees became trapped, a squad crossed open ground under enemy fire to evacuate everyone safely. One Aurelian mother later recalled seeing a wounded human soldier carrying 2 frightened children to safety. The soldier could barely walk, yet he refused to stop until the children were secure. Stories like that spread everywhere. World after world was liberated. On frozen planets, humans fought through blizzards. On desert worlds, they marched through temperatures that shocked local populations. On toxic industrial colonies, they operated in environments most species considered unsurvivable. Everywhere they went, the same pattern emerged. The humans fought fiercely, but they also protected fiercely. As the months passed, a new reputation began to form. Among civilians, they became known as the Protectors. Among allies, they became known as the Unbreakable Ones. Among the Cracks, they earned another name, the Monsters of the Death World. The title wasn't meant as an insult. It was a warning, because the Dominion was learning something terrifying. Humans adapted. Every tactic the Cracks developed worked only once. If a human fleet suffered losses, its commanders studied every detail and adjusted. If a weapon proved effective, human engineers quickly developed countermeasures. If a defense line held, the humans found another way around it. The more they fought, the stronger they became. In the Dominion capital, deep within the fortress world of Kairos, Supreme Warlord Vecthar watched the latest battlefield reports. His claws tightened around the armrests of his throne. Another fleet lost. Another sector abandoned. Another humiliating defeat. The war that should have ended in months had become a nightmare. "Explain this," he growled. The assembled generals remained silent. No explanation satisfied him anymore. The humans simply refused to behave as expected. One commander finally spoke. "They do not fear losses as other species do. They lose ships," another added, "and return with better ships." They lose soldiers in return with better tactics. A third general lowered his head. Every victory against them seems temporary. The room fell silent. For the first time, Vector felt something unfamiliar. Concern. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. Yet no enemy had ever fought like humanity. The humans did not seek glory. They did not seek surrender. They sought results, and they never stopped. Meanwhile, on Earth, the war had transformed society. Factories operated day and night. Scientists developed new technologies. Shipyards launched fleets at unprecedented speed. Millions volunteered to serve, not because they wanted conquest, because they had seen the Aurelian plea. They had seen burning cities. They had seen frightened families fleeing through space. And they had decided that extinction was not an acceptable outcome, no matter whose extinction it was. That determination terrified the cracks more than any weapon, because humanity was no longer fighting for territory. Humanity was fighting for people, and humans were at their most dangerous when defending others. 6 months into the conflict, the Dominion's leadership reached a desperate conclusion. If they could not defeat humanity in Aurelian space, they would strike at the source. Earth. The plan was simple. Gather every available fleet. Launch the largest invasion in galactic history. Destroy humanity's homeworld. Break their will. End the war. As orders spread across the Dominion, thousands of warships began converging toward a single destination. Across the galaxy, intelligence networks detected the movement. Analysts stared in disbelief. The numbers were staggering. Entire armadas were heading toward the Sol system. The final battle was coming. And for the first time since the war began, the people of Earth looked toward the stars and realized something extraordinary. The enemy was finally coming to them.
The Cracks invasion fleet arrived in the Sol system like a dark tide. For days, long-range sensors tracked its advance. The numbers were almost impossible to comprehend. Thousands upon thousands of warships emerged from hyperspace, spreading across the outer reaches of the system. Never before had so much military power been gathered in one place. The Cracks believed this would be the battle that ended humanity. On Earth, billions watched the news feeds. Families gathered around screens. Workers paused in factories. Students followed live broadcasts from classrooms. Everyone knew what was coming, but there was no panic, only determination. For months, humanity had fought to protect others. Now they would defend their own home. As the invasion fleet advanced, Earth's defenses activated. Orbital stations powered up. Planetary defense grids came online. Missile platforms emerged from hidden locations. Warships took their positions. The Sol system transformed into a fortress. At the center of Earth's defense network stood Fleet Admiral Marcus Hale aboard the flagship Resolute. He studied the tactical display in silence. The enemy outnumbered his forces. No one denied that fact. But numbers alone did not decide wars. All fleets report ready, an officer announced. Hale nodded. Then let's get to work. The battle began with light. Thousands of weapons fired almost simultaneously. Missiles streaked across the darkness. Railguns thundered. Energy beams flashed between warships. Entire sections of space became storms of fire. The Cracks expected humanity to fight defensively. Instead, human fleets attacked. Strike groups punched into enemy formations before disappearing. Electronic warfare units blinded targeting systems. Autonomous drones harassed larger warships. Every move forced the Dominion to react. Hours passed, then days. The battle spread throughout the solar system. Near Mars, around Jupiter, across asteroid belts. Everywhere the Cracks advanced, humans met them with stubborn resistance. And every time the invaders adapted, humanity adapted faster. The Dominion's numerical advantage slowly began to disappear. Not because they lacked ships, because they were losing them. Far faster than expected. On the third day, the turning point came. Human intelligence officers identified the command vessels coordinating the invasion. Within minutes, a massive strike operation launched. Fighter squadrons, stealth ships, long-range missile batteries. Everything focused on a single objective: decapitate the invasion. The attack was devastating. One by one, Crack's command ships vanished from tactical displays. Communication networks collapsed. Entire fleets lost coordination. Chaos spread through the invasion force. For the first time, the Dominion's commanders realized the truth. They were losing. Supreme Warlord Vecthar watched the disaster unfold from his flagship. His invasion had been unstoppable on paper. Yet reality told a different story. The humans had anticipated every move. Every weakness had been exploited. Every mistake had been punished. He finally understood what his generals had been trying to tell him. Humanity was not dangerous because of its technology, or its weapons, or even its numbers. Humanity was dangerous because it refused to surrender. No matter the odds, no matter the cost. By the fifth day, organized resistance collapsed across the invasion fleet. Retreat orders were issued. Many ships never received them. Others ignored them. Thousands surrendered. Thousands more fled. The greatest invasion force in galactic history broke apart. The war was over. Months later, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered at the Galactic Assembly. For the first time in years, the hall was filled with celebration rather than fear. The Crack's dominion had surrendered. Occupied worlds were being rebuilt. Refugees were returning home. Peace had returned. Among the guests was Supreme Counselor Elora. She had one final task. Standing before the assembly, she looked across the countless delegates. Many of them had once believed the Aurelian Republic was doomed. Many had refused to help. Yet she felt no anger, only gratitude. A large image of Earth appeared behind her. A small blue world, the home of the species that had changed everything. "We asked for help," Elora began. The hall became silent. "We were losing our worlds. Our fleets were destroyed. Our people faced extinction."
She paused.
"And we pleaded for mercy." The delegates listened carefully. When our call reached Earth, we expected sympathy. A faint smile appeared on her face. Instead, Earth answered. Images of human soldiers, rescue workers, engineers, and starships appeared across the massive screens. They answered with courage. Another image appeared. Human Marines carrying children to safety. They answered with sacrifice. Another image. Human workers rebuilding damaged cities. And they answered with hope. The hall remained completely silent. Finally, Elora spoke the words that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. "We pleaded for mercy." She looked toward Earth's delegation. But Earth answered with its Deathworlders. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire assembly rose to its feet. Applause thundered through the chamber. Not for conquerors, not for warriors, but for a people who had chosen to stand between extinction and those who could not stand alone. Because in the end, humanity's greatest weapon had never been its fleets. It had been its willingness to fight for someone else. And that was why the galaxy would never forget the day Earth answered.